India-Bhutan railway connectivity. Why it is being fully funded by India. Why it is so much more than just bilateral ties. And how it is also about securing the chicken neck corridor and countering China's influence. India and Bhutan has just launched its first ever railway link between each other, marking a historical milestone in regional connectivity. This is not just about trade and tourism, but it is so much more about protecting our vulnerable chicken neck corridor and countering influence of China. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand that how this India-Bhutan rail link, two railway lines that are being established, are a master stroke by India, and the full funding that India is giving, there is a simple reason behind it, that India is pitching this for their very own interest, and the dividends will not just be in form of trade and tourism, but also security, border preparedness and protection of our land. So if we talk about the rail connectivity which has been established, the two railway lines are going to be established. First from Samtse to Banarhat, and then we have Gelephu to Kokrajhar. Now when we are talking about these regions, Kokrajhar is in Assam, Gelephu comes in Bhutan, Samtse again in Bhutan, and then we have Banarhat in West Bengal. Now both of these are not big railway lines. This first is somewhere around 20 kilometers only. The other one is somewhere around 69 kilometers. But the whole idea is not to just boost trade for Gelephu, which is being built up as the mindfulness city of Bhutan, and Samtse, that is the industrial hub of Bhutan. So one important factor that you need to consider here itself, that Bhutan is a landlocked country and it needs access to the sea for boosting its trade. So when we are talking about development, here we are facilitating Bhutan also, and we are finding alternative routes as well. Now let us deep dive first into the project and what exactly it brings us. So India has launched the first ever rail link, and you have to understand that this whole project is being fully funded by India. Now it has two divisions. The first, the part in India, whatever railway construction that will happen in India, that will be taken up by Indian Railways. But the certain parts that will be built in Bhutan, that will be taken care as a development project by Ministry of External Affairs, and the funds would be arranged in that very manner. Now the reason India is investing such a huge amount of almost rupees 4,000 crore is to get the advantages here. Now let us, when we talk about the advantages, it brings one nation in our corner, it facilitates the integration of that nation, especially into the international rail network, which is a big deal for Bhutan. And that will explain us, and that will bring us more insight to understand that why this is more important. If we talk about this very rail link, the conversation about it began back in 2000 itself, and the conversation was about 5 proposed such lines. As of now, the announced ones are just 2, which are expected to complete in next 3 to 4 years. So at that time, the conversation was about 5 proposed lines. In 2005, we signed the MOU with Bhutan that there will be a cross-border railway project, and in the recent visit of Prime Minister Modi in 2024, this Kokrajhar and Gelephu and Banarhat and Samtse MOU was finalized and signed. So you can see that even such huge projects which have immense impact on our security, border preparedness, reducing vulnerability, can take more than 2.5 decades to actually materialize itself. The execution and final thing will be seen in another 5 years. Now let us get into understanding, let us start understanding that what is the whole significance of this very railway line. The first significance is the very fact that it is located near Siliguri Corridor, also known as Chicken Neck Corridor. That means this is the narrow pathway that connects the mainland to northeast India. So if you see this narrow pathway, this is merely 22 kilometers. And if anyhow this is cut off, then mainland India will be disconnected from northeast. So a railway connectivity very close to this from Samtse to Banarhat, and then we have Gelephu to Kokrajhar will have a huge enhancement in terms of connectivity itself. Furthermore, another important advantage that comes in from here, that it will serve multiple purposes. It will have economic advantages, strategic advantages, and it will also strengthen our bilateral ties. Now let us understand the significance of Chicken Neck Corridor before we move into understanding that how this is a master stroke by India itself. So when we are talking about Chicken Neck Corridor, as I have just shown you, that it is a small flank of land pathway of 22 kilometers which connects mainland India to northeast India, and this 22-kilometer pathway is such a vulnerable, sensitive, bordered area because there is Nepal on one side, Bangladesh on one side, and then we have, after this, there is close proximity to China as well. This was the exact region where Doklam standoff happened. Now, because of its closeness specifically with China, this becomes a vulnerable spot for us, and that is why it holds such strategic importance. Apart from that, this has a security vulnerability associated with it because Chicken Neck Corridor, if you see, it is a single narrow corridor itself. So if anything at all happens, there will be disruption, and this disruption might disrupt the movement that is happening from there, be it of goods, be it of military, be it of equipment, be it of healthcare, trade, and that will choke the supply of all things that are going towards northeast. And that is why we have seen that this Chicken Neck Corridor has been of critical importance in past also. If we talk about 1962, when China showed aggression from Nepal territory, that is presently Arunachal Pradesh, from this very region, India immediately understood the main reason for aggression because this could be the strategic point where northeast India could be isolated. Furthermore, 1971 war where East Pakistan and West Pakistan were fighting and India was also gradually involved. The troop movement was ensured, supply lines were ensured from this very corridor so that the eastern operations keep on going, and this played a very important role because if we do not have the facilitation of Chicken Neck Corridor, then our isolation or breaking up of northeastern region would have been more possible. So this highlights that this plays a very significant role, and that is why this significance is understood by external factors as well. That is why they are targeted, and such target was seen in 2017 during the Doklam standoff, where Chinese activity, especially near the corridor, threatened not just the movement but the security, and that is when India not just focused on the standoff but also secured its supply lines beforehand itself. So this is why Siliguri Corridor, that is Chicken Neck Corridor, becomes important for us because it is important for ensuring the territorial integrity of India, because any problem here could lead to isolation of northeast. Other than that, the military preparedness that is required, the movement of military that we saw in 1962, 1971 as well, that can happen from that very place only, and if that is disrupted, then again isolation is possible. And third and the most important point here is the geopolitical sensitivity because of the closeness of China in form of, if you find this region, this is the Chumbi Valley region that we get to say, the tri-junction between India, China and Japan. And the sensitivity comes from the fact with the proximity that we see from China itself. And in this very context, because Siliguri Corridor remains very sensitive, vulnerable, strategically important for us, that is why we are calling this rail link a masterstroke. Now let us understand the benefits that come from it. First, let us look at the economic benefits. So when we are talking about railway lines, it will reduce the travel time, especially for Bhutan's export via Indian ports that can be done. It will help in strengthening our bilateral trade. We will be facilitated in terms of mineral, industrial products, consumer goods, etc. It will also enhance tourism When we are talking about Bhutan, Gelephu, that is being developed as mindfulness city, and Samtse, that is industrial hub, that will reap a lot of benefits for Bhutan, and it will create jobs in logistics, transport and hospitality sectors as well. But when we are talking about India in this very context, especially when we are talking about economic benefits, we get to see economic growth, we get to see regional connectivity, regional development in terms of employment, generation of other industries, facilitation of industries, ports, better output would be seen. All this is going to be seen, but there comes another side, that is in form of strategic benefits. So when we are talking about strategic benefits, this will give us a direct impetus to military logistics strengthening. That means if there is rapid troop deployment required, especially to northeast India, we have an alternative transport route, not just for military logistics, not just for military, but for consumer goods and other things as well. That means excessive dependency on a singled out route will be lessened. This will also give a direct boost to India's Bhutan strategic partnership. It will reiterate that Bhutan remains an important neighbor, and this will also be an integration, better integration in northeast India and especially our nation's foreign policy, where we are talking about Act East policy. With all of this, we get to see economic development, we get to see strategic foresight from India's end, and we also get to see international cooperation in form of the railway links that have been announced. Now moving to another important question that we started this whole conversation with, is it an act against China? So if we look at the official statement, it is basically about development, but we cannot ignore the fact that China has had expansionist tendencies, even apart from Jakarlong, Pasamlong and Doklam, the dispute that had happened also. These regions are claimed by China. Another important region is the Samtse wildlife sanctuaries. If you see three of these regions, if we are talking about Doklam, Jakarlong and Pasamlong, all three lie on the border, and the dispute might be understandable because they are perceiving it in a different manner. But if you look at this particular territory, that is Samtse wildlife sanctuary, you will see it does not share border, and there is Arunachal Pradesh in between as well. So China claiming this is coming out of nowhere, and such claims are only to rise in the coming time. And when we are talking about Bhutan being exposed more to China, India's presence and India's cooperation with Bhutan, even as development, counts a lot, because that is how we will be able to protect such strategic positions, corridors and regions from further border disputes, which can lead to global chaos, internal chaos, etc. Now on this note, I'll leave you with a question. What are the challenges do you think that will be faced when we are talking about India-Bhutan rail links? You can put it down in the comment section. If you have any doubts or concerns, you can share it on the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.